Hey, what's up? I am David for BigBits. We're going to be streaming today. Got a few things to talk about. Updates from yesterday, looking at price, what we've seen as far as what I kind of expected yesterday, what the differences are, happened, what really happened. Lots of news came out regarding Bitcoin, the ETFs, and we talked about inflows and outflows on those ETFs yesterday. So it'd be good to kind of follow up on those things. Really, not a whole lot other than that going on, but we're going to dig into it and see if there's anything else we can find. So far, price is doing pretty much what we predicted it would. We were zooming in and out of our indicators yesterday, and we were looking at the 1 hour around this time, I believe, yesterday. And I believe it was right around here. What we were really kind of hoping for, if we were looking for an opportunity to sell and go short, because we believed that, well, I believed that on the 4 hour we were going to come and test the 200 moving average on the 4 hour chart. Well, that was the goal on the 4 hour. The 1 hour chart, in order for us to find a good entry from this point, because this is when we started looking at the chart, we were kind of hoping for a run up to the 200 on the 1 hour. So we were hoping price would come up so we could sell and have it go back down to the 200 on the 4 hour, but that just didn't happen. Not really a big deal. I'm not trading right now. I'm invested. I've got plenty. Got plenty from when we bought below 22,000 last year, before, I think. Can't remember exactly when the bear market was at its peak. Really kind of want to see something like this. Let's go back here on the chart. So we're looking for a 4 hour test on the 200. And what I really want to see is a man. Okay, so my windows are getting all messed up here. What I really want to see is this price drop down, touch the 200, which will also be, and you look at the crosshairs here, right at prior support where we've tested a few times before. Hopefully can stay above it. That'll be a nice correction, 73 down to 61 or 2. Pretty solid correction. Very well could go well below that. I would, if I were trading actively, what I would be looking to do, you're gonna either, yeah. So I imagine you'll get a touch on the bottom Bollinger Band on the daily here, if it goes down there, and that's somewhere around 60K. So if it goes down there, that's probably where I would look to buy. There's a few points. So if you're wanting to ladder into a position, what I'm looking for here, first ladder step right around here, and you can break your limit orders up as well into smaller chunks. So say you wanted to buy 100 Bitcoin at the 200 here, and I'm just using these numbers so that it's making sense and it's easy to understand. But say you wanted to buy 100 Bitcoin right here, I would buy 10 here, 10 here, 10 right on it, and then continue to ladder down even more, because chances are, even though you think price is going to hit and bounce from here, chances are it's probably going to dip beneath. If we touch that bottom band on the daily chart, then we've got somewhere down here right around 60K where it should wick down to. Now if we close below this and you still wanted to buy 100, you would have leveraged, well, not leveraged it, but taken your time and stepped into your position. That's what I'm looking for. You were stepping into your position going down through here. So if you split these up around where you want your average entry price to be, then you may not have purchased all of them, because if you went down far enough, you would still have more buys down there. So we're looking at two key areas here, and we're looking about right here as well for where we would like to buy. So what I would do, purchase one here, 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 and then I would step up here. So we were going to do, well, no, I am on the brush. I wanted 10 there, all the way down to here. Start buying 20 here. I'm going to double my unit size. And then let's zoom out. Look at the daily. So now we're averaging into a position somewhere around the bottom Bollinger Band on the daily, even though we're looking at a 4-hour chart. Even if we don't get the full position, that's completely fine. You less risky. By definition, if you were to buy less at a higher price, so you take that risk that you're not going to get as large a position, but you give yourself a better opportunity to make profit based on where you get in at. So you would want the larger size position that you have at lower levels. So we're looking here, we have regular unit sizes, and we're going to step down to double unit sizes here. Then you've got to think, if this breaks, we're looking at the daily chart now. We're going in and out between the 1 day and the 4-hour chart. So these are our entry positions for our 4-hour chart with the 1 day mixed in. But let's take a look at the 1 day chart. Where would we want to see this stop at? Clearly, we would want to see it stop at the 50. To have something like that, you would probably need a continued downtrend somewhere around here, around 57,000. And of course, you can always update these orders once you place them. But let's go into the chart again. What was that price? I've already forgot. Around 57,000. So when you look at the 4-hour chart, it's honestly not that big of a difference. There's 57,000. Place another one right in the middle. And that's going to be 20 down, 10 down to here. So now we've got 20, 40, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So you buy all 100. And your weighted price, if it goes down to the 50-day, so you finally get to buy all 100 that you wanted. So you're at 1 times leverage. You're not even at multiple leverage here. This is something I like to do, is to focus on using partial leverage. So using less than your full account. And I know that's hard to do because it takes a lot of money to make a lot of money if you're not using leverage one your full amount. So getting in here small is fine. If you get a quick bounce, that's great. That's quick money. But if things continue on beyond where you expect, you're averaging your price in. So we got 60 here, right? Our average price there is right here. We got 40 here with your average price here, 60 and 40. You're looking at an entry price right around 59,000. Let's go out to the daily. Look at this. So what you're looking at here is this. If this is the entry price that you got on 100, and the price goes down all the way to the 50 and corrects, that is profit right there. Of course, then you've got to worry about price continuing to go down. So you've got to have stops. You've got to be willing to risk. That's what trading is all about. So you also need targets as well. So you need a target for your stop, a target for your profit. We're going to look, where would we really want to accept this much from here? We're loss, that's your profit, and just random kind of profit and stop levels. You would want to plan these out. Just clear drawings out here. Drawings anymore. But as far as Bitcoin's concerned, let's take a look at the TA. I think what I'd like to start doing on these live streams, what I really want to do, let's publish a idea on TradingView every day, and let's see how that goes. Let's go down to the 4 hour. Let's draw just a little bit. That'll be our target area. And then let's some arrows in here. Those are always handy. Put one there, and the other will be coming down. Arrow here, there. We have that going down to 57. Let's make that one red. This one green. And this is what we're going to be looking at. So our yellows are going to be our targets to enter a position. Green would be the way we're hoping it goes. Red would be obviously bad. But let's zoom out a little bit here. My head's kind of in the way in the corner. Luckily, there's nothing down here. But look back to the left. Again, we're talking about support. So let's go back this way. Let's make it a flat line. There we go. Let's make that one yellow so it's obvious that we're looking at prior support. And let's publish an idea. No, I'm not going to do that. Say Bitcoin to possibly looking to buy Bitcoin at 200 on 4 hour. I wish they didn't cover up the chart when you did this. It makes no sense. If I'm making an idea, why wouldn't I be able to see the chart that I'm basing my idea off of? Absolutely. Odd design choice. And this is a desktop experience, so I understand if you're on like a phone, but we're on a desktop, you know, full 1080 HP resolution, and we're getting the whole screen covered up, and doesn't even take up the width of the screen. This is obviously designed for a mobile device. I don't really care for it on PC. Let's see. Looking at the chart, you can see at the chart on 4 hour time frame. Need to check chat. Okay, make sure no one has said anything. People coming in. Not good, but I'm going to be on here as much as I can, and I want to try and start making every single day if I can. Looking at the 4 hour time frame, we see a good opportunity for a long entry at, where is this? 61,000. Excuse me, still kind of getting over the flu. Had that a couple weeks ago. Cannot shake the cough. Looking at the chart on a 4 hour time frame, we see a good opportunity for a long entry at roughly $61,000. Reasons. Make a little list. 1. Oh boy, I hope this. I'm not a fan of the formatting. Oh boy, I wish they had it to where you could like preview the source like this, but actually see finished product. So I do not like this. I do not like that at all. This list, I just want to make sure. I'm not sure if I put the value in here or if I put it out there. Whatever. I'm going to make my own. I'm going to do this. The reasons we're looking at this prior support at same levels, yellow line arrow. That's our yellow line that we were talking about. Got a moving average support level, 200 MA. Now, was that all? I don't really believe so. Here, just nothing really on the 1 hour. What was on the daily? At 60K potential wick area. Bottom of the daily Bollinger Bands. All right, so I would consider ladder entry. Start at front run 100 MA at, or where are we going to front run this at? Let's go back to the 4-hour charts. We're going to look at 61.8. I want to get kind of close to it. What I'm kind of afraid of is it would bounce before it got to these previous support levels. So that is the highest support, 61.5, 61.8, I think is fine. At 1,000. Right at 200 MA. Below 60,000 here, right? No, right here, that's the level 57. No, that was not it. That is the 50 MA. We're looking at this level, which is the bottom Bollinger Band on the daily, 60,000. So we're wanting to catch between 60 and 61. So best case scenario, all bids fill down to as low as 60K with an average entry price around, what are we looking at? It was going to be just below. It would be just below the 200. Which would be like right at 60. step into the position to reduce risk. Stop loss. We're going to have that. It's going to be invalidated probably around 8K. Take profits. 68,000 roughly. What we're looking for here, that yellow line, which really wasn't respected as resistance on the 4-hour chart. This would kind of also be in line with some previous resistance and support. I really do like that level. Plus, if we were to bounce where we expect here would be a probably crossover or cross under, I should say, of the 50 under the 100, and those typically do tend to be kind of like price magnets. And you could also scale out of your entry as well. You could take some profit at the mid Bollinger Band 4-hour and hope that it continues to run. I like to be very flexible in my position. I do not like to get locked in, and I do like to take partial profit from time to time. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Let me put the measurement on there that shows you the profit and loss. I never use these, but I guess if I'm going to be publishing ideas, I probably should. Not a price range. People. Where is that tool? Oh, long position. Okay. Said 58K. So yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at here for the position. So that would be a risk of 5% loss versus 11.5% gain. I'm not really sure how most people feel about that. I'm pretty confident in it, so it doesn't faze me whatsoever. Risk reward ratio 2.28. See something. So most people expect a 3-to-1, but 2.28. Like I said, I'm pretty confident you'll see a bounce here. And one of the ways I really like to kind of scale out on these things is I really like to over time. So like the further we get away from when I expect a bounce. So in this case, I would expect a quick bounce. But if things are kind of dragging out and consolidating, I would reduce the position in profit. I probably wouldn't try and reduce it in a loss because there's still a chance for it to turn around. Your idea is not validated until you drop below your stop loss. You've already accepted that 4 or 5% loss on the trade. But when you're looking here, I would gladly secure some profits if my trade doesn't play out the way I think it will. Like I said, I think this is going to happen quickly. But if it doesn't, that also kind of invalidates my trade idea. So what I would be doing would be scaling out. It starts taking long. If I still like my position, if the chart continues to shape up nicely, keep more of it. But this is one of those things where you have to be a very critical thinker to be able to grasp what's going on here. So let's look at this. We'll do what, trend analysis, support and resistance. Let's look at moving average, chart patterns, technical indicators. Let's look at moving average. There we go. Those three are plenty. Actually, let's take it off of trend analysis and let's add technical analysis, technical indicators, whatever. Pretty much the same thing. Yeah, let's make it public. Be an analysis that will be going long. And let's, we have here. Okay, well, let's tag Bitcoin, crypto, BTC, what I'll look for, IBIT, FBTC. That's good enough. Related ideas, no. But I do swear by the house rules. I haven't read them in a long time. I think everything I wrote was good, so we're going to go ahead and post the idea. It's the first one I've posted in a long time. And I actually do have a lot of followers. Share it on X. Oh, that's a good idea. Let's do that. Okay. We're going to look at X in just a minute as well. I've got some things I need to go over with everyone there today. Where are my followers? My profile here. Yeah, I've got a few followers on here. That's pretty cool. One of the bigger accounts for compared to most people. Definitely. Pretty happy about that. Looking to buy Bitcoin at the 200 MA on the 4 hour. There's our idea. I'm going to rocket ship my own idea. Why not? Haters going to hate. I really like it. So look, I got 42 on that one. 238. Oh, I made some good content back in the day. I just don't have time to do all this stuff anymore. But I'm really happy, proud of it. Litecoin long. I don't think that one worked out. Actually, it did because this was before the bull run. I'm not touching Litecoin anymore. I've still got some bags of it, but no, not touching that. I wonder how some of these ideas looked out. I need to follow up on the ideas that I'm posting here because it's just it's something you really need to do to see how you're actually considering I'm not actually making the trades. It's going to be go back. But yeah, that's I like the idea. I really do. Worst case scenario though on this one, everything fills and it hits this level here and bounces at this level. Although I don't really see this as a key level. Who knows? I'm not too particularly worried about that one. But yeah, you can check on X and you can see where I've posted that. Let's go to my profile here. A few things to look at. So this was the idea I just posted on TradingView. If you haven't already, go like that over there. But we're going to look at some of the key things that we talked about yesterday, which include the BTC ETF inflows. So there's a few very important accounts that I follow that give a lot of insight into what's going on. They may not do it the best way all the time, but what I like to see here are these Bitcoin ETF inflows, zero hedge, very big accounts. I follow them mostly for insights like this that I don't get to see otherwise, and really not going to go out searching for this data. It's not really that critical to me to find it on my own. So when I see it, I'm looking for it. I like it. But we had a net outflow on the ETF yesterday. One of the very, very few times we've had a net outflow. Just kind of crappy that it happened. But here you can see color coded all of the funds and their flows. So yesterday, 642 Bitcoin flowed out of GBTC. That black bar, I think my head's probably in the way here. But this black bar in the picture, that black bar, which represents more than the yellow here, which is the inflows, is the outflows of just GBTC. Let's see, I thought somebody said there was an outflow on something else, but it's just a net outflow. Everyone else is buying really good. 451 in the iShares, absolutely incredible. The demand is constant. It's not dropping down. We're not getting net outflows from the others just yet. I doubt people are going to sell so soon. And like I said, a lot of this could just be people changing their ETF host for different fee structure. Obviously, some people are trying to get out. Some people are having to liquidate, cover for particular things. So, for example, he says to meet bankruptcy obligations of Genesis and others. So, GBTC, I believe, was held by a lot of the organizations that were bankrupt during the bear market. And considering this is an asset for them, that had to be liquidated to cover the bankruptcy creditors. So that's something also to consider. I'm curious how much Bitcoin they even still have. I know it's a huge amount. Still, that's kind of hard to believe. Glass. Let's see. Where does it show the total amount of Bitcoin? Excuse me. Here is what I'm looking at. They have total Bitcoin in trust, 378,000. I'm hoping this is updated as of right now. But 378,000, that's a huge number. That's nearly 2%. It's like 1.75% of the entire supply of Bitcoin in here, with only 642 Bitcoin coming out of this yesterday. And it's going to take a long time. I mean, they have enough to do this for quite a bit. Look, calendar. Look, we got 378,000. Let's divide that by 642. So we saw record outflows for one day at 642 Bitcoin. They have enough Bitcoin to sell that many Bitcoin every single day for 588 days and then some. So there's obviously going to be some sort of equilibrium where there are people who aren't going to sell and not buy elsewhere. But as long as our net inflow, which is the yellow and above here, above this midline, as long as that continues to be greater than the black, it's not a big deal. But it's just something we're going to have to consider. We're going to have to continue to offset what GBTC sellers have. And then what's really going to be concerning is the day when you have considerable outflows from the others who are typically on the top here as inflow. So once they see enough profit, you'll see some big changes. And I'm thinking you will want to continue to keep an eye on the inflows and outflows, because this is going to give you such an insight as to what professional traders are doing every single day. Are they buying? Are they selling? And right now, it's not too terribly important. We're below the all-time highs. A lot of people aren't going to take profit if they see significant profit on such a position. So let's think just 100K. So if we get to $100,000 for Bitcoin, I am going to start seeking out this data constantly. Every single day, every single trading day, I'm going to see, when are these people with a ton of money thinking, you know what, it's time to sell. And now one day like this where we have more outflows than inflows, that's fine. But once we start seeing a trend on more outflows than inflows with multiple PFs, then yeah, it's probably looking like it's a good time to sell. Now that day is probably going to hurt. By the time you see the data, you're already going to be pretty red from the top. There's going to be a considerable drawdown once these people decide to sell large numbers. Bitcoin, very interesting. There's only 21 million. So when you're talking about big numbers, how much percent of the supply is on exchanges? 5% maybe. I forget, or I'm not even going to bother to look it up. But I think at least 80% is in inactive wallets that aren't moving it for over a year, something like that. So we got a lot of Bitcoin that isn't even available to be traded, not on exchanges whatsoever. The impact of selling one Bitcoin changes depending on the price. So with less and less available on the exchanges, when you sell one Bitcoin, your impact percentage-wise could be greater than it would be at lower levels. And one thing I've noticed is that in the past, when you would look at order books, let's look at Coinbase right now, actually. This is something I love to do from time to time, especially on days where prices breaking all-time highs. This is actually pretty fun. Excuse me. Let's take a look at the order book here. I like to break it up into tens. I don't know if you remember this, but back in, I think it was 2017 or 18, we were looking at buy walls and sell walls in the order book. Thousands of Bitcoin on Bitfinex. I used to look at the Bitfinex order books. I don't really care anymore about which exchange. It's just kind of relative. I like to see what's relative to that particular exchange, like which key areas have bigger walls on them. And I was watching the all-time highs on Coinbase being created, and you were looking at sell walls of only 50 to 60 Bitcoin. And I just remember looking at these order books when we were breaking all-time highs back in 2017, and you were looking at multiple thousands of Bitcoin being sold. Buying that much at those particular levels to break those walls and increase the price even further. And now, we're looking at 20 here. Not really a real big key level here to look at, and the order book's kind of limited. They don't give you a lot of levels. You can't zoom out any further. So, not really a good one to look at. Let me see if I can pull up Bitfinex. Demo. Let's see. Here is their order book. This is what I'm used to seeing here. Let's I think I needed to increase precision. That's what I needed to do. Decrease, increase. All right, so these are kind of the sell walls that we're looking at here. I believe count is the number of orders and the amount is the total Bitcoin at that particular level. And I do believe this is cumulative. These are $1,000 levels. So every $1,000, look at the amount. You got 97 Bitcoin at 63,000 as a buy wall. You know, we're looking at sell walls amounts. What's the largest sell wall we see here? 253 at 65,000. Go back up to all-time high, 74,000, 132. You've only got 5 Bitcoin in the $73,000 range for sale on Bitfinex. That's $1,000 range. You've only got 5.5 Bitcoin. Absolutely unreal. Let's zoom out again. I think this will take us to $10,000 levels. There you go. How many Bitcoin are on Bitfinex right now available by 830, 910, 1040? So just over 1,000. Where's the cumulative amount? Yeah, 1,052. I should have just looked there. It's been a while since I've looked at the books over here, so I wasn't too familiar. There's only 1,000 essentially Bitcoin available to buy on Bitfinex. Unreal. So we talk about how on the charts you get these flash crashes. You could have the exact opposite here. You know, what if somebody, you know, fat fingered and bought 1,000 Bitcoin right now? Price would go up to 100K on this particular exchange. Now, quickly, people would sell at that level, obviously, and a lot of buyers wouldn't rush in to fill the books, but you could see that happen there. And talking about flash crashes, what's up? I don't want Yahoo article. CoinDesk. At least it's crypto centric. Bitcoin flash crashed to $8,900 on BitMEX. This is one of the news articles that you'll see if you pay attention to crypto Twitter, which I think I reposted this yesterday. But large sell orders were 55.49 million, drove the price down. And it's like somebody was making timed sells, like periodic sells, irregardless of the book. So whoever did this was not thinking as clearly as they needed to put it kindly. They were clearing out those books, so every time they sold, I think they said it was like 400 Bitcoin total. But every time they sold, they ate into that book and they cleared out the book. So they would sell, it would clear out that amount, that amount, that amount. And BitMEX spot exchange is tiny compared to their derivatives. And so it would be very easy to clear out those particular levels in the book. So you'll see, to get the price down to $100, it only takes 2,200 Bitcoin. That's it. So when you're talking about somebody selling, and you're talking about a small exchange, that's the kind of stuff that happens. But take a look here at the price. You know, it would take to get to, what was it, $8,000. It would take 1.7 thousand Bitcoin. So it only took 400 on a small exchange like BitMEX Spot to get the price down to around $8,000. So similarly, you're going to have the same thing potentially happen if somebody came in with large orders on these even bigger exchanges. I'm not thinking anything like that's going to happen. There's a lot of liquidity here, very limited supply. It's hard to get a hold of, but just something to keep your eye on. And keep an eye on these books where prices are going. Like I said, impact for 1 Bitcoin will be much greater. You're talking about 1 Bitcoin here, 70,000. 1 Bitcoin here is $1 million. And the books will thin out, and that's kind of the point that I'm making. In 2017, we were talking about thousands of Bitcoin sell and buy walls. Now we're looking at 100 maybe. So your 1 Bitcoin makes a much bigger impact in the book now than it did then. because people are less willing to move that amount of value at one particular time. And that's why the books aren't being as full. But it's just something to keep in mind when you're looking at all these large numbers and we're talking about inflows and outflows. These things are getting huge amounts of inflows and outflows. And when the price gets really high, I honestly think volatility could get kind of wild at very high levels, just depending on how these ETFs trade. And we don't have any idea how people are going to handle that when the price gets very high. I know a lot of people say these ETF buyers aren't going to sell for a very long time. But if they see the price skyrocket up to $1 million, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to sell. I mean, they've got hundreds of Bitcoin. An individual may have hundreds of Bitcoin through their ETF or valued as that, and they want to sell. At that level, the books thin out. And if they've got hundreds and they want to take profit on 5, by that time, those 5 Bitcoin will have a much bigger impact in the book because the books have tend to thin out the higher price has gotten over time and the more distributed Bitcoin has gotten as well. So just something I'm kind of keeping an eye on is that impact on the price at these high levels. KR, thank you. Missed my videos and analysis. I'm glad somebody missed the analysis. I know a lot of people appreciate the tutorials, and I want to try and get back on that. If you weren't here earlier, man, I posted an idea on TradingView trying to get back into these things. The way things have worked with my job, I've got different hours and stuff now. Things are a lot more flexible, so I'm able to do things like this more often for the time being. And so I'm going to try and do that. But really looking at order books because of those inflows and outflows. We talked about that a lot yesterday, man. There we go. I'm trying to figure out chat. I got to keep my eye on it. But if you all have any questions, just put them in the chat. I'll go look at whatever y'all want to, as long as it's appropriate, you know. But let's go back to the profile here. Did it really hit 8,900? Yes, on the BitMEX exchange. That's BitMEX spot, and that's something that Americans can actually do. I think it's in their regular application. Yeah. So this is their spot engine. Let's take a look at their order book. Group price by 1,000 here. So somebody sold, I think it was 400 Bitcoin total. Wow. So these are $1,000 price levels here in the order book, and they've got a cumulative total down to 44,000 as 6.2 Bitcoin. There's only 6.2 Bitcoin of demand on this exchange, down to $44,000. So if you were to hop on to BitMEX spot trading and you were to sell 6.2 Bitcoin, your average price would probably be about $50,000, and you would be very upset. So that's what we're talking about with order book liquidity on these exchanges and the impact. And let's see what's the low here. Yeah, $8,900. It might be a little tiny on the font. You'll look right here. It'll show you again. $8,900. What was the volume on that candle? 532 the one before it, and 262 there. So yeah, somebody was unloading a lot of Bitcoin on a very thin order book. But let's take a look at the opposite. What if somebody bought 6.2 Bitcoin right now? There's not even 4 Bitcoin available to buy up to 81,000. So you could have this in the opposite direction. And these things do happen from time to time. And this is a lot of reason why people put those bids and those asks in the order book at those ridiculous levels. Like, there were people who had bids down here who got filled. That's crazy to think about. But if you've got some money or you've got some Bitcoin on an exchange and you're not doing anything with it, why wouldn't you put in a bid on an illiquid exchange like this really low, just hoping to get filled? Price typically on Bitcoin doesn't typically drop 80% in a day. It can feel like it, but it usually only goes down like at most like 20%, 25% in a day on the worst days. So if you put these bids down here, you're very likely going to be an instant profit and you're going to be incredibly happy. But the thing is, it almost never happens. You've got to hope somebody makes a terrible mistake in order to get those prices. In the same way with selling, you could put your ask up here, 80 grand, and hopefully somebody would do something really dumb and buy too many. You can see something kind of like this. I don't know if this is one of those such instances here, but see a big wick on this particular day. That very well could have been somebody fat fingering an order for a buy and market buying instead of placing a limit buy and having things go up way too much, way too fast. But yeah, I love watching order books on days when we're breaking all-time highs. It's fun. Okay, so I finally made it through the first post that I looked about. Michael Saylor bought. This is something that everyone needs to kind of be aware of, and this is another big risk for the future, is that MicroStrategy has 214,000, greater than 1%. Hey, D. Lee, how you doing? Nice to see you again today. You were here yesterday, right? I remember. Got it. But yeah, they have over 1% of the entire Bitcoin supply. And we were looking at GBTC earlier, who has 1.75% of the total supply. These entities are becoming big risk in the future, depending on what happens. What happens if these entities have to be liquidated for whatever reason? That is a concern. With MicroStrategy in particular, what happens if leadership changes? Well, that person could be like, well, let's just sell all this Bitcoin. It's worthless. It's made us a lot of money. We can all be rich. Let's sell it and be rich. So there are a lot of concerns when it comes to that. Yeah, Dealey, thank you, man. If you didn't see it earlier, I posted an idea, kind of what I was talking about yesterday. If you were in when I was doing TA yesterday, I was looking at a potential bounce on the 200. Yesterday, we were looking at price up here, kind of expecting it to come down to here because it had broken. We were kind of hoping for potential to sell up here and then have it come down, but that never happened. So now I'm just kind of looking at it long. Is there any data regarding who got their order filled at 8,900? No, KR, unfortunately, there wouldn't be. BitMEX, since it's a centralized exchange, all of their trade data is on their back end. So unless somebody came out and said they were the ones who did it, I mean, really, there's no way to prove who did. But that is something to consider when you're looking at DeFi as well. I could imagine a lot of those order books are very thin, so it might be worth looking towards making some stink bids on a DeFi platform, expecting somebody to make a big sell unintentionally or even intentionally without understanding the impact. But yeah, over 1% of the supply, again, that would be what I would be concerned about in the future. So that we're going to talk about like major risks with Bitcoin in the future. What are those major risks? What could be the next FTX that causes price to crash and causes another bear market from a single event? So let's go back out. I want to look at the weekly chart here. We had a scam corporation selling fake Bitcoin essentially, getting the price down lower, and got bankrupted, ruined the bull market. But this was one entity that caused this, and there were many more who ended up in the wake of FTX and other exchanges. These kind of things happen when there's a huge price drops. But What we're really afraid of in the future are these huge holders. We're talking all the ETFs, and we're talking MicroStrategy, anyone else who has a ton of Bitcoin. They're a huge risk. What if somebody gets hacked, for a bunch of Bitcoin, 10,000, some anonymous person who hasn't came forward to say that they have a certain amount of Bitcoin. What happens when somebody like that loses control of their Bitcoin? These are things that I'm worried about. The ETFs selling off at very fast levels. Once price gets very high, it's going to cause a lot of volatility, and it could set in a top. So once price goes nuts, if ETFs decide now is the time to sell, they could put in a gigantic candle, and then people are going to get scared. The retail who came in last, obviously, are going to sell quickly as well. It's going to be a huge sell-off at that point. But more importantly, after ETF inflows, I'm not too worried about the outflows, but I do believe they could create a market top. I doubt ETFs would drive a bear market. By no means do I think they would. I think they could do something like this with their outflows, taking profit, but I don't think they could do this whole thing all the way down to the bottom. Eventually, those things would balance out. But what I would be afraid of would be the kind of cascading effect from huge ETF outflows at the top. You get something like this, and then you've got somebody like an FTX, some entity like FTX, who goes bankrupt because of that. We don't find out for a few weeks later, and price drops way more. So what if, and another risk is Coinbase itself. They're doing custody for just about all this Bitcoin. What happens if there's an issue with Coinbase custody? I don't think there will be. I don't have any reason to believe there will be. But how would that shake the market if ETFs held, all of these thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin, and their custody provider had an issue? Now, if Coinbase were to lose access, that would probably be good for everybody else, but it would shake the faith of those traditional investors and probably crush the market. Other people would be looking to get out, like, oh my gosh, we can't trust Coinbase. Who is going to hold our Bitcoin? Something like that would be devastating to the market. And that was one of the things that really concerned me with all the ETF applications. They kept naming Coinbase over and over and over. Everyone's in on Coinbase. If something happens with Coinbase, you're going to have FTX times 2 or 3. Coinbase is bigger than FTX, I believe, at any point in FTX's history. Coinbase is way bigger. It's like the #1 retail on-ramp and off-ramp in America. It's hosting all of these ETFs. If something happens with Coinbase, the market's nuked for a very long time. And that'll just nuke all crypto. No one will have any trust on the retail side anytime soon. Especially all this big money that we're talking about with ETFs. Those people, they won't want to deal with that. You're paying these people all of this money to custody your stuff. If something happens with that custody and you can't trust those people to custody your Bitcoin, you're not going to be doing that. And if you have another asset like Ethereum that's stored very similarly, if not exactly the same way, in these wallets, how can you trust them to hold any asset? So that is probably the biggest concern I have, is something happening with Coinbase. Then, of course, we have the ETF outflows, just something to watch. The MicroStrategy and these big organizations, this is news you've got to look for constantly. Are those entities being liquidated? Or does leadership change and somebody make a strategic decision to liquidate? These are why you need to pay attention. And these are also why Bitcoin is going to remain volatile. until things really get settled down. There's a lot of good news coming out of lawsuits, so I don't think there's going to be a lot of issues. But it is something you have to keep an eye on. And as far as market tops and causing bear markets, like what else could possibly go wrong? And that is legislation. Uh, God forbid Elizabeth Warren gets her way with crypto. We're all screwed. I don't know where she's getting the money or resources to, or the desire to fight crypto the way she does. But imagine you get enough people like her. I mean, we already know politics is terrible. People are bought and sold all the time, but like I said, all it takes is money to get these people on or off board on something. And if you get enough people on board with Elizabeth Warren, they'll pass some stupid legislation, and it'll be devastating. Pretty much in the market as we know it for these things. I don't think it's going to happen, but it is something you have to watch. Look for the trends and follow people who post updates about laws and legislation being proposed. It's one thing to catch this legislation when it's being voted on. It's another thing to know that it's going to be voted on eventually or in a committee. So if there's some sort of legislation to ban Bitcoin, let's just go all the way out there instead of some sort of smaller countermeasure. Let's say there's a committee that has a bill and they earmark in there real quickly, just ban Bitcoin in America, whatever. I don't know how they plan to do it, but just they earmark that in there. No one can buy or sell. All the centralized exchanges would be shut down, whatever. Say that gets out of a committee. That would scare the bejesus out of people. But this is the reason why you got to follow politics. Because they do stupid stuff like that, put stuff like that in bills. Not necessarily to that degree, but they put stuff in bills that they don't know or they don't understand. They vote on it anyway. And if it gets out to a vote, this is why you need to follow politics to a degree to where you understand what the majority think about a particular topic. Right now, crypto is completely fine. It's pretty safe as far as politics are concerned. Actually winning a lot of legal battles. And I think if you've traded stocks, you would be very aware about how legislation impact stocks. So if you know that something detrimental is coming, you can get ahead of the curve and you can plan your exit or your entry based on that. So for example, we just talked about this yesterday with the ETF approvals. Like the writing was on the wall. We knew they were getting approved. Because of the legal precedent. We knew they were getting approved sometime back around here. I think this is when BlackRock filed, sometime in around here. We pretty much knew once BlackRock filed, they were getting approved. So you had, if you were following and you knew that BlackRock filed for an ETF and you knew that these lawsuits went through, you would have been buying and buying, and you would have known the bear market is over. It is no longer a bear market. You would have known as soon as BlackRock filed, it was safe to buy. There's always risk, but these are the things you look for opportunity. And speaking of opportunity, we talked about huge risk to the market. Let's talk about huge opportunities for the market. Say exchanges run out of coins. We've already looked at order books. They're very thin. What if there's another Michael Saylor? What if there are multiple Michael Saylor? What if there's a billionaire, Bezos, who wants to come in and buy more than is issued every day? Not terribly hard for him to do. We're going to only have 450 Bitcoin every single day. coming forward after the next halving. So let's do 450 times what's the current price? 62,000. $28 million a day in new issuance at the current prices. Starting next month. Yeah, it's about 29 days away. But I just now noticed on the weekly chart, unfortunately, that a dip I see in the Bollinger Band. No. Okay, good. So what I was afraid, I saw the contraction here. I thought it was contracting up here as well. That would have been bad. There's still room for growth here. Oh, we're dumping right now. Wonderful. A 1 minute chart. That looks awful. But look, we're almost down to where I wanted the entry. I said to front run at 61.8 is where I would front run and purchase all the way down to 60. So average in from here to here, get your average price hopefully around 61.1. We'll see. It'll be interesting. It looks like it's going to happen. And I know you might not even be able to see that. There we go. Yeah. Your average price around there, hopefully. Did I do that? There we go. I was wanting to go through the profile here. Yeah, so I like to post some people who have good ideas as well on X. So if you aren't already following, please do. This is a very good point. You were looking for a dip to buy. It has come, but now you are calling for 45K. There's a lot of people out there. They see the price going down. They're like, oh yeah, we're going to get it even cheaper. Look how quick it's going down. And then you get something like that where it bounces and kind of takes back off. That's how things happen in a bull market. Right now, there's a little bit of fear. People are selling. They're selling quick. But what happens once you get a bounce like that? What happens when people quit being afraid and they see the price coming back up super quick? They turn around and they start buying it. And that's what drives these bull markets. People sell out of fear and they buy out of fear. It's something else, and it's something you need to keep in mind about keeping your emotions out of trading. And when you enter into a position, you accept that risk. You accept that risk for a loss, and you accept that risk for a profit. And you can always make adjustments on the fly, but you just can't get emotional. If you want to exit out of a position early, you can exit out of a position early, but make a plan and try and stick to it. Don't do this. Don't say you're going to buy at 60K, and then when 60K comes, say no, 50K, and keep lowering it. Don't do that. Find a plan and stick to it. This isn't professional financial advice. This is just common sense advice. Please try to stay rational and non-emotional. What else we got? That was about his notes. Again, we talked about this yesterday. BitMEX research. This is a very good account to follow. They posted a lot about the outflows. So apparently, European ETPs for Bitcoin had $525 million in outflows since January 11th. So other countries, their ETFs may perform differently, and that's not data I'm really looking for. I'm not even really aware of. What if there's other countries that have ETFs that are selling? Another opportunity, by the way, back on ETFs, are other countries introducing ETFs, such as China. I believe they talked about that. Maybe not necessarily China, but Hong Kong. yeah, these are just things you need to be aware of that could come up. The GBTC outflow, we talked about that earlier in the video, but you would have seen that last night following them. And I recommended them too because of this one. The SEC were to allow staking. The Grayscale ETH staking policy is going to be very interesting. Given what happened to GBTC, if Grayscale don't manage to do staking, outflows could be even more intense. So essentially, if they don't add staking to their ETF product and other ETFs are offering staking, what he's saying, or what they are saying, is that people would sell everything they have in the one that doesn't stake to go to the one that does, so that they can get the additional assets. It's kind of interesting. I'm curious how they would do staking in an ETF. But yeah, the Ethereum ETF, which also seems somewhat likely, a lot less likely than the Bitcoin one, which we almost knew for certain. But if Bitcoin gets approved and Ethereum doesn't, that's going to be kind of concerning. Let's look at this one. The judge in the debt box case has issued an 80-page opinion. I'm just going to read this one because this one was kind of important. The judge in the debt box case has issued an 80-page opinion sanctioning the SEC for egregious misconduct in the case. The opinion is devastating to the SEC as an institution and to the particular lawyers who committed the misconduct. The judge made it crystal clear that the SEC lawyers did not make an error. They lied intentionally. SEC is terrible. In an opinion that will surely be cited by litigants across the country for years to come, the judge found that the critical evidence the commission offered to obtain and defend ex parte TRO lacked any basis in fact. Yet the commission nonetheless advanced that evidence in deliberately false and misleading ways. So they're basically saying that the SEC lacked evidence based in fact, and they presented it as false in misleading ways. So just absolutely ridiculous. And it says the SEC engaged in a gross abuse of power entrusted to it by Congress. The SEC undermined the integrity of the judicial process. So essentially, their regulation by action, by enforcement, I should say, is stepping in front of this judicial process, and that's what the judge has ruled. So when they say that these are going to be used by other cases as setting precedent, yeah, that's true. People are going to be looking at this case, why are you going after us? Look at what they did here. That's what these lawyers are going to be doing. The judge has ordered the SEC to pay the attorney's fees of the defendants. This is a sad day, and they say that because the SEC was once a great institution. I'm not sure about that. Now is a time for accountability. That is true. That is always true in government. The judge found that the SEC engaged in gross abuse of the power entrusted to it by Congress. Very true. Always true. Will Congress do anything about this? Absolutely not. It's going to have to affect politicians for them to do anything, and we all know that. Weekly inflows. Yeah, I talk about basketball some too. I don't think there's anything else. I want to clear my chart. I don't care to see that anymore. I've got it up on an idea. 1 minute chart looks to be bouncing a little bit now. Again, I wouldn't trade a 1 minute chart. You just use it to time things a little bit better with your 5, 15 an hour and up. 10:43. Yeah, I've been going for an hour and 15 minutes. Trying to think if there's anything else. If y'all have any questions, put them in the chat real quick. Otherwise, about to call the video. I don't have a lot to talk about. I don't really care to keep talking if I don't have anything to talk about. Although it would help with view counts. And I may get around to making some more conscript related content. I gotta tell you what, I'm kind of burnt out from coding. It is coding, man, it just wore me out. And after my year last year, I am mentally at capacity. A lot of things. Any thoughts on what might happen to Bitcoin when the Fed cuts rates? Well, the consensus is that price will go up. It might take some time, as most things do, but I think there will be a very strong initial reaction. But at the same time, people are expecting Fed rate cuts this year at some point. So I'm not sure how strong that initial reaction will be. I think it'll be more of a cumulative effect over time. We have, very high rates right now. They don't really intend on lowering rates at a fast pace. So even if they were to lower rates, we know based on the forecasting that they're not really intending on lowering them quickly. So if we knew they were going to lower rates back down to 3% within 6 months, then it would have a huge impact. It will be good, and there probably will be a good initial reaction, but it'll take time for the rates to get low enough to make lending more affordable and have people get back into the market based on the rates itself. At least that's my opinion. And like I said, when it's cumulative, you're talking about, you drop a quarter point. How many people are enticed by a quarter point? Not a lot. Especially when you're at rates this high, it's a small percentage compared to, if you were to cut a quarter point at 1%, that would be huge. But if you cut a quarter point at 6%, it doesn't make a difference for the most part. It does make lending cheaper, but at the same time, it doesn't make it considerably cheaper. So really what you're going to be looking for, I think it's called that dot plot, where they predict what the rates will be in the future. Just keeping an eye on that. I think they've really only mentioned this year cutting the rates like 3 times. But it will be cumulative, and it's something to keep an eye on, of course. I think if they plan on cutting it below, even more than what they wanted to, that's when you would get a very strong reaction. So, they're saying they're going to cut 3 times by the end of the year. I think if they change that and they decide to cut 4 times, people will get excited and they'll FOMO jump in. And that would actually be a very good time probably to get in for a quick one. But looking at the current situation, I don't know. I don't see it as too impactful based on the information they're giving right now. So something's got to change. And essentially the only change that we can have is a quicker rate cut or a slower rate cut. Slower rate cut, not good. Faster rate cut, good. I think that's what it essentially boils down to, in my opinion. Okay, well, I think I'm going to end the video. Thank you, D. Lee, for stopping by. We'll see if I can't do these routinely going on, but I appreciate it. I hope everyone has a good day. See y'all later.